Run, run, run. How great is that record?
I can't remember the lyrics, but it's great.
It's on YouTube. I've listened to it like independently a few times. I love it. I love the old timey.
I do too.
I don't know.
And then when it's warped at the end on
it's
the
great,
burning record.
Yeah, everything's... there's an actual ghost involved.
It's flipped.
I don't know if this was part of your elementary education, but there were like records, like game records for little kids.
What do you mean?
Like a record you would put on, like the Hokey Pokey record. Like that was a thing when I was a kid, and it was sort of like of a different time.
But it's for kids.
Yeah, it's like it would do like the Hokey Pokey song, you know, and before each thing, that would be like a guy that was like right leg, and then it would go, you put your right leg. Yeah, so it would cue you as to what was coming up.
Interesting.
So it's sort of
it's like the Fitnessgram Pacer test.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's like where you have to run from one spot to another back and forth, and there's like a man giving you instructions. It's like a PE thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So there is still like
similar
analog to this. There's still like, oh, that's interesting, because I was just like, oh, this is just a very like bygone thing. But yeah.
It lives on.
It does live on. Now, when a PE class is, like, murdered in a freak accident, and that thing comes on later, is it all warped as the gym is burning down?
Oh,
like,
it's
at the end of
super
this?
warped, yeah. I have a lot of experience in the area of burning down
Did you
schools.
see Coach Labille, Coach Labille, and at the end when it's burning down,
we had to sacrifice goats.
The
to
haunted
keep the
PE class
to keep the score going.
Okay, I think we've beaten this into the ground enough. Are you ready?
In a second.
Are you still putting notes in that you've had all day to do?
Don't roast me like that. But yes.
Hello, and welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. I am Phil Rood. I'm the dad. And I'm being talked over.
And I'm interrupting. I'm Austin, the son.
This is what happens when you're, 17 episodes in now? And I've cut you off an uncountable amount of times. Like
at a certain point, I'm fed up.
You just start pushing back in all these really benign places, like the introduction. It doesn't matter at all.
I'll get him this time, guys.
Well, what do we do on this show, Austin?
What do we do?
Yeah, what do we do?
We watch a movie every week.
Every single week.
Every single week.
Yes, sir.
And then we talk about it on mic.
It right here.
We are recording.
On this mic.
Both by this mic and the FBI agents currently monitoring us.
Whoever is, right, keeping an eye on us, because we are...
high profile.
Some sort of watch list, I'm sure, has us.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, all of our very controversial takes on things like Fight Club and, yeah. Anyway, what have you been up to? What's new?
That is an interesting question.
Well, you're on a break, right? From school?
Yeah, starting yesterday.
Not from your relationship or
no,
anything, no.
Yes, from school.
He's listening and like, what?
It was Ross from Friends. We were on a break.
All right, we're not gonna. Do we have to bring up Friends here?
I'm sorry.
This is my safe space where I don't have to hear about Friends.
It's white culture. We talk about Friends.
We have to celebrate our culture. I'm a Seinfeld guy. I've always been a Seinfeld guy. I'll die a Seinfeld guy.
That checks out with your age demographic.
What's the deal with that? They're from this very similar time period. There's a lot of overlap there. Come on.
I would say Friends is more younger millennials.
Oh, it's hipper.
And
it's cooler.
I wouldn't go that far.
It's cool to live in Manhattan with no job in the nicest apartment I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, that is cool.
Yes, it is cool.
Do you not want to do that? But I haven't been watching anything new.
No.
It's kind of been the same old. Gearing up for Legend of Korra.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Same.
It's been about it.
I'm nearing the end of season 2. Legend of Korra. I started Lovecraft Country.
Right.
I'll talk more about that later. I'm off work this week, so I've been trying to take some time and catch up on some movies and some things that I've been wanting to sit down with. And
we're kind of both on vacation.
Yeah, a little bit. But we're not sitting down to watch stuff together, except for our movie this week. But I did just watch. I finally watched Joker.
I heard that.
I just finished, like right before we started here.
Give us your hot take.
My hot take is Joker is an amalgamation of better movies. It is Taxi Driver. It is Fight Club. It is an independent movie directed by Bobcat Goldthwait called God Bless America. It is a lot of things rolled into one. All of those things have been done better, but on its own, it's not an unwatchable movie.
Right.
My biggest gripe of it is, like, it's not a movie about Batman, and still they had to shoehorn the Batman origin story into it.
That was honestly the worst thing.
They didn't lose me until the very end when they do that, and they have to do the pearls, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? This is a movie that's not about Batman at all.
We got 99% of the way there.
We were almost there. It's a movie that tried to do some interesting things that I think ultimately didn't follow through on.
Sure.
I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a very good looking movie, but I think it's just trying so hard to be Taxi Driver. And at a certain point, I would tell people, just go watch Taxi Driver. It's a so much better movie.
Right.
Everything. It's trying to make New York look dirty. Whereas Taxi Driver was filmed.
It's not that hard to make New York look dirty.
It is now, but it's trying to make New York look like New York looked in the 70s, whereas Taxi Driver was filmed in New York in the 70s and really does look grungy and dirty and gross. Like, it's kind of a poser movie for me. I think if you haven't seen any of those other things,
I haven't. It's
fine. But I think if you already have this background, I just think you're going to look at this movie and go, this is the movie that's been this big deal. This is the movie everyone was afraid of. And this was the movie everybody rallied behind. Like, this is just such a nothing movie.
Sure.
It looks very good, though. The cinematography is great in it.
Okay. I will take that.
I think it's a super overhyped movie. But it's fine. It's watchable.
Right. I think with, like, comic book stories, people go insane when it's just like this little bit of, oh, we're shifting the genre.
Well, there's this whole thing about, like, oh, it's this incel, thing.
Well,
it's this, it's that.
Yeah.
It's trying to be timely. I don't know. All in all, it was just such a nothing movie to me. And it didn't have to be a comic book movie.
What do you mean?
I mean, it could have just been a movie about, like Taxi Driver, about, like, this sort of disenfranchised, mentally ill person.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean?
But then no one would see it.
That's my big complaint about this kind of thing, is like, oh, this could have been a really interesting movie. And the one interesting comic book tie-in they had, which was like, oh, Thomas Wayne is potentially his father, which would make him and Bruce Wayne, like, brothers.
Right.
And the one scene where they actually met, I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then they just drop it and walk away from it all. And it's just like, wait, this was the one thing you had tying it into a franchise in a interesting way. And
we're just going to make it an Easter egg instead.
And right, exactly. It was fan service at the end. And that's ultimately, I think, there's so much of that movie that it's fan service for Batman, it's fan service for Taxi Driver, it's fan service for Fight Club with his imaginary girlfriend. You know, like
right. I can see all of those
all
elements.
of these things. I'm just sort of like, yeah, it's fine. I guess if you don't have time to watch all those movies and you want them all just rolled into one, like you could watch. Yeah.
Quick, I need to watch these five movies.
Five movies. Here's Joker. And the best thing that come out of Joker is probably Joaquin Phoenix's performance. I thought was really good.
I think so too. I think he's the main reason I liked that movie.
I think he kind of carries it. I don't think it's like his best performance, but I think it was very good. And also the SNL parody, which was like the gritty origin story of Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street with David Harbour.
Oh, I've seen it, yeah.
Like, I know I'm late to this movie. I'm bringing up an old parody, too. Like, but, yeah, I think that's probably the best thing about it. But, yeah, I just wanted to go off on that a little bit because I don't want to do a whole episode about Joker.
We can just throw it here.
Because, I mean, Joker's that movie that everybody talked about last year. 1,000 podcasts were done about it.
Right.
It's just sort of like, but...
It ate up all of the news for some reason.
Yeah, right. But
people were terrified of this movie.
That's what I'm talking about. This movie was so overhyped, and I'm watching it going, this is the movie everyone was afraid was going to spark some incel revolution. Like, come on, man. It's just such a, yeah. I just had thoughts about it. I wanted to get them out there.
I think that's fair. That's kind of what this, what the picture show is all about.
That's right. But that wasn't the movie we watched for this week. This episode is really about the 2019 horror comedy Ready or Not, in which a bride's wedding night takes a sinister turn when her eccentric in-laws force her to take part in a terrifying game. This movie stars Samara Weaving, Adam Brody, Mark O'Brien, Henry Czerny, and Andy McDowell. The film was directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette. Or is it Gillette, like the razor? I'm not sure. Co-directors on this film, which I thought was interesting, but looking at their credits, they seem to be like a directing team. They're both working on the new Scream 5, which is in pre-production, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, and I think they've kind of worked together as a directing team, I guess, kind of in the way like the Coen brothers do.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to a lot of times I think it comes down to a director having a vision, and that takes a lot of trust to collaborate on something like that.
Right. Well, maybe this is a drama comedy, so maybe one director was handling the horror and one of them the comedy.
It could have been, like very specific things that they work on. I mean, the Coen brothers direct together. They're writer-directors. I mean, there's like a vision of a team as opposed to a single person, which I think is interesting.
Sure. This is our last Halloween movie,
and
it's your pick. Why did you choose it?
I chose this movie because I saw it last year in the theater, and I just think it's a super fun horror movie. That's it. It is exactly what I like about. That's a big blanket statement to throw on it. It is an element of horror that I like, where they are just clearly having fun with the horror elements of it.
Right.
And I think this movie is very unique. I think it is about a really interesting cast of characters. It would have been easy to just have this, weird family. Here they are, blanket statement. But every one of these family members is like a unique kind of bumbling idiot. Like there's the Coke monster sister. There's the idiot brother-in-law. There's the gold-digging sister-in-law. You know what I mean? And
the murderous aunt.
Yes. Everybody is this weird, eccentric, but they're all morons, basically. Like, they're all just like... just incompetent. They're all dumb. None of them are good at this.
Right.
But there's also like that brings a lot of comedy to this. There's a lot of physical comedy, and there's a lot of sort of weird. There's a real dark edge to it, though, too. Like they're trying to murder a woman on her wedding night.
Right.
Like, and then there's like a lot of gore and blood to this movie too. It's a real weird mix that manages to be very funny and very dark at the same time.
Right. I would agree that this is a fun Halloween movie. Like, out of the 4 movies we've done, I'd say this is probably the most outright Halloween movie.
Ooh, we're jumping ahead. Jumping way up. Yeah.
We can come back to it.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, let's just do it now. I mean, this is a Halloween movie by your definition.
Yes. Because it plays with it. It's like, it's got whimsy to it.
Right. I don't know if whimsy as much as... Is whimsy and fun the same thing?
I don't know. I would say the hide and seek aspect, all of the game jokes that they have in there, and then also just exploding at the end.
Okay,
like that felt so like Beetlejuice.
Sure. Yes. That's a good. Would you call Beetlejuice a whimsical movie?
I would. Yeah.
In that Tim Burton kind of way. Yeah. I think maybe that's where my block is for calling this whimsical. Is like, this doesn't look like a Tim Burton movie or something that we would paint as whimsical, like dreamlike or something like that.
Visually, it's not whimsical, but I would say the things that happen in it are pretty whimsical.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would say I never felt very scared during this movie.
I agree. There's some suspense. There's tension.
Right.
But not really. Again, it's very rare that I'm scared by a horror movie. You know what I mean? I'm grossed out sometimes. I feel the tension sometimes. I'm jump scared sometimes, but I don't know that I'm often like terrified of like a monster. But I think there is a lot of tension here, and it is about basically stalkers. The supernatural stuff of this movie doesn't come in until the very end.
Right, I didn't expect it at all.
So, like, as a tone, I think that's the scariest part of this movie, is that this family is trying to murder her because they believe in something that isn't real. They believe, you don't really think they're cursed, but you're like, oh man, like they've just taken this so far.
They're so crazy at this point.
And they're right. Well, there's something real world about people who believe things to extreme. I mean, we see it in the darker side of world events and things like, people go to war over what they believe in, on a supernatural level. And it's, so that kind of thing is like the most terrifying thing in the world, honestly. So like to see it on this personal level, where here's a family who believes that they're cursed.
Small scale.
Right. But the stakes are very real for this one individual.
Right. I will say, though, I never felt like she was going to die. That may have just been a plot thing, but I was like...
Sure.
She's going to survive till the end of this.
I think it's fair to put that on almost any movie, though. Like, the main character, you just sort of expect that they're going to make it through to the very end. There are exceptions, especially in horror, I think. But
sure.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
I think Nightmare on Elm Street, and someone is going to correct me on this, like someone would get through the movie, and then like at the beginning of the sequel, they would be killed, and then it's like a new set of characters.
Oh.
And so it's almost like it almost just undoes the previous movie every time. That's my memory of it. I've not seen those movies in years, because they all ran together and weren't very good. But
that seems like a very sequel problem in general.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's the idea, the whole point of making whole sequels out of and franchises out of these things that should be this one note kind of,
right.
And
we don't want a sequel to this movie. We don't want the first one, Ready or Not, the second one, Here I Come.
Right.
Like,
I kind of feel like it's going to happen, though. It's like she's going to marry another cursed family. And
she's going to throw her own wedding, start the curse over.
She could. Or it'd be one of those things where they reboot it in 20 years and it's like their kid. She has a kid. Yeah,
right. Any successful horror movie, that's what happens.
Sure. This is a Blumhouse movie. And
right.
I think somewhere in here it reminded me of another Blumhouse movie in the horror comedy thing, and that's Happy Death Day.
I got the same vibe.
Which did get a sequel as well, which I also heard was pretty watchable. I haven't seen it. I've seen the first one. And I don't think that's like a great movie, but like it is a fun twist on the horror movie.
Right. It's like what you said, I think in the last episode about Blumhouse always doing interesting stuff.
Yeah, they kind of will make something that's maybe not the greatest movie, but it's usually interesting or has some interesting twist on it at the very least. Like, I don't remember much about Happy Death Day. I remember the plot and the, sort of the plot mechanics. I don't remember
Groundhog Day.
How she got out of the cycle, It
Right.
It doesn't matter. Like, that movie was fun. I do remember that movie being a lot of fun.
I've seen that movie twice, and the second time I had forgotten.
That's what I'm saying.
And I still don't know.
It's kind of a forgettable movie at the end of the day. But it is fun nonetheless. Like, this movie also reminds me of a better movie that came out last year, Knives Out.
I didn't get that at all.
Just in the fact that it is sort of a dark story that is also a lot of fun about an eccentric rich family of unlikable people.
Okay.
And this
I
this
feel
young
like this
woman
is way
underdog.
darker.
It is dark. It's not the same genre of movie. I'm just saying, like, there is a comparison here where it's like, I think if you gave these to somebody, and I think this would actually be like a fun double feature of like terrible rich families, like
Poor comfort.
right? But
look at how much worse you could be.
But ultimately, the person outside that family is triumphant in both those cases,
right? Yeah,
and it isn't the underdog poor woman. It's but yeah, this reminded me somewhat in just logistically of Knives Out. But the fact that Knives Out is a better movie doesn't negate this movie. This movie is still a lot of fun. It's why I brought it to the table and said,
right,
let's have fun. We watched Get Out. A lot of social commentary. Kind of heavy movie when you factor in what that's really about. We watched The Witch, which is just a dark fairy tale. Real heavy, not a lot of fun. Midsummer, crazy fever dream. Burning alive. I mean, just so much shit going on in there. I'm like, let's have some fun. It's why I nixed The Shining in order to put Ready or Not on here, because I just wanted to let's have a fun, scary movie. Let's have a good time with this.
I was gonna say, and this isn't a fault, but this is definitely the least. Like, this movie doesn't have as clear or as strong as of a message as the other movies that we've done.
Oh, sure. That's what I'm saying. Like, there is no message to this movie, really.
Right.
Like, it's just a straight suspense thriller.
Which is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to take anything away from it and say that it is a surface level movie, and it's executed so well that it works.
I will say it's a bit harder to think of things to talk about, though, when it
is. Well, there's a reason I vamped about Joker for 10 minutes.
That's true.
I got through this, and I was just like, oh, we're gonna have to fill some time. But no, like, let's talk about cast. I thought this was a good ensemble of like character actors. Like, not a lot of big stars in this movie. I would say Andie MacDowell is probably the biggest star in this movie.
Is that the dad?
Andie was the mom.
Okay.
But she was yes, you don't know Andie MacDowell, but people my age kind of grew up with Andie MacDowell in a lot of comedies. She's in a lot of like rom-coms from the 80s and 90s. She was a model in the early 80s. She's in that first big Tarzan adaptation.
You seem to know a lot about her, Dad.
Andie MacDowell was gorgeous. Growing up, it was just sort of like, oh yeah, she's like not like one of these like smoke show sex pot women. She's just a very like classically beautiful woman,
right?
And you just sort of took notice of her. You're just like, oh yeah. She was like, oh, we got this romantic comedy. Who should we put in here? Oh well, Andie MacDowell, because she's this sort of, just classically beautiful, but not like intimidating.
The safe choice, kind of.
This very like kind of almost girl next door kind of thing. Groundhog Day. That's the big one people will know her from. She is in Groundhog Day.
She is?
She's the love interest in Groundhog Day.
Oh.
Have you seen Groundhog Day?
I've seen Groundhog Day.
Come on. Yeah.
Come on, Dad. Who do you think I am?
Well, you didn't know who Andie MacDowell was, and she's like the second billed person in that movie. Like,
I don't know names.
But you didn't recognize her?
Not really. The only one I recognized was the dad, but I don't know what from.
I recognize that guy from the very first Mission Impossible movie, which is now, 25 years old.
Is he the villain in that?
Kind of. In every Mission Impossible movie, there's the CIA guy, or the
MI6.
IMF, yeah, whatever the spy agency is. There's the one agent who's like tracking them down.
Right. They've always got that
while Tom Cruise is tracking the villain. It's the same formula every time. He's that in the very first one, the Brian De Palma directed Mission Impossible.
All right.
So, yeah, that's what I always remember him from. I know he's been in a trillion things. He's a character actor from everywhere. But that is the thing that always sticks. That voice, everything about him just sticks in my head. I'm like, it's Kittredge. Of course.
I'll have to go through his IMDb later to kind of see what I might recognize.
I'm sure he's been in 100 things, or you recognize his voice from stuff.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
The one son, actually both sons, I recognized. Alex was in a show I used to watch called *Halt and Catch Fire* about computer programmers in the 80s, sort of inventing laptops and things like that, and he was a sort of side character on that. And then Adam Brody, who played Daniel, I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He used to be on this Fox show called The O.C. It was like after Beverly Hills 90210. It was sort of like their later replacement for that.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was like it was one of those shows that just like I caught it a couple times. I'm like, yeah, I don't get this show, but like I recognized him, and I had to look up what I knew him from, and that's 20 years ago, and I've seen him in a couple other things. He's pretty good though.
I think this cast works really well together. They're like, just each one of them is so into their character.
Sure.
Like, you can just tell they're having fun playing these weird villains.
I think so. I think everyone's chewing scenery a little bit and just sort of having a good time with everything.
Right.
So, let's jump more into the characters. Let's take a break, and then we'll jump into characters when we come back.
Okay.
All right. And we're back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, check out that red line. Got it.
Is that what you're going after?
Yeah, I look to spike it every time on the the EKG here.
Sure. Very technical talk in the studio.
I need to be able to find my edit points, so if I can redline it at a certain point, I'm just joking. Let's talk about characters. Who was your favorite bumbling idiot out of the family?
I have to go with the cokehead. I don't know any of the names.
Emily was the sister,
right?
Who was constantly doing drugs.
The screw up.
Yeah. What did you like about her? Just, in general.
just her being funny. Like, every scene she's in, she's
killing every maid accidentally. Like,
oh, I forgot my gun.
Yeah. It's always screwing shit up.
Right.
I did like her, and I liked her husband. Fitz?
Is that the guy with the crossbow?
The guy with the crossbow who is like watching YouTube videos to try to figure it out. Yeah, I mean the cast of characters on this is just, I just like them because they seem very menacing until they start to actually try to track her down.
Right.
And then they end up just completely terrible at it. You know?
At first I was like, oh no, she's really fucked. And then I saw like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah, like they're you know, and I don't know how intentional it was, because the thing that comes up over and over is like, oh, this never happens. Like that card almost never comes up.
Right.
Like, so they don't really know how to do it. Like in especially like for the brothers, and so, like, they've never had to hunt somebody.
Right.
The parents did, of course, but not
like
not the younger generations, you know. So but yeah, they get into like all this other stuff that they apparently did, like sacrifice, like they keep a barn of goats for sacrifices.
Right. Black Phillip in this movie
That's
again.
Right. Another connection. I think Midsummer our only antler-free movie?
I think so.
They went with the bear. Interesting choice.
If only they'd had a goat, it would have been perfect.
I know. I mean, they're in Scandinavia, the home of the Vikings. Horned helmets, nothing? Really, Midsummer?
It's actually a myth, Dad.
I know.
Okay.
But it's all there still.
I get it.
I'm just saying, we missed out. We could add a clean sweep. Horns across the board in October.
Come on. Movies are made for us.
I like to think so. That's why I'm so mad at Joker right now. What did you think of the twist at the very end?
That they were right about
that the curse was real.
I still don't know.
Really?
I thought it was fun. Like, yay, they get to die. They're all awful people. But
see, I think it was the best kind of twist, in that the twist is that there's no twist. That they were right the whole time. That it's very real.
Right. Well, the first twist, it's a twist because they show like the sunlight coming through, and they're like, oh, finally, it's not real.
It's all bullshit. Right. But yeah, I don't know. I liked it. It is one of those movies that loses a little bit of steam on a rewatch, because that was something that I think pleasantly took me by surprise the first time I saw it. Was, oh shit, it's real.
Right.
And now, knowing that it's real, and knowing as they go through the movie, like, oh, the stakes for this family are very real, as opposed to they're delusional. It kind of, I don't know,
they're still delusional, though, because they don't know that it's real. Like, they're just going off of the word of other people, and like that this is what they're told to do. So they're still jerks.
Well, they get into it with when Alex is talking to his mom, and he talks about like, yeah, I left here because it occurred to me while I was sacrificing a goat that this isn't normal, and that anything seems normal if your family just tells you to do it.
Right.
And that is essentially the story of this entire family, is that they have just gone on the word of their predecessors that, oh yeah, this is real and you have to go along with it. And your life depends on it.
It reminds me kind of, this is a weird comparison, but there's a short story called The Lottery that like every high schooler in America has had to read.
I feel like I have read. What is The Lottery?
It's literally just this town is taking the lottery, and you don't know what it is, and it's this yearly tradition, and then whoever gets picked, they stone to death.
No, I haven't read that.
It's supposed to catch you off guard, and then be like, see, blindly taking tradition is bad.
Right.
And that's what I thought of watching this movie, because it was like,
yeah,
tradition is bad. Don't blindly follow.
Sure. Yeah. Like, I would say tradition without understanding is bad. Like, just like you said, blindly following. Yeah. That's a really interesting comparison. I'll have to find that story.
It's an interesting one. But I was a little disappointed. I was thrown off because when they didn't explode, when nothing happened for a minute, it was like they woke up and they saw this woman that they'd been torturing, and her husband has just stabbed her and he's trying to play it off.
Right.
And like, I wanted to see that play out.
Sure. Well, let's talk about Alex's turn, because for me that is sort of the weak point of the movie. When he decides all of a sudden he's rearranged his entire life to be away from his destructive family and their sick traditions, and then he sort of is reluctantly coming back. Apologies for the lawnmower in our background right now.
Let's hope it's not there.
I let my neighbors know our recording schedule, and just zero regard for us.
No one reads our emails.
Not only are movies not made for me, my podcasting schedule, and nobody respects it.
The world isn't.
The world is against us. But Alex is somebody who is consistent all the way through this movie as someone who is against his family's traditions. He is against them. He is trying to help her escape. He is trying to save this woman he loves. And then at the very end, he just turns on a dime. And he's like, yeah, put her on the table. I'll kill her.
See, I'm going to fight you on that one, because I don't think he was against them. Like, he tried to leave, but ultimately he came back. He said, like, the reason he went along with the wedding was because there's a rumor that if you try to leave the family and get married without them, that you'll die.
Right.
So he still believed that, and that's why he came back. Like, he's trying to fight it, but ultimately he is still playing along and easily manipulated.
It's... All right,
I like the other brother's story better.
Okay, you're making sense to me if I put it against Daniel. If I put it against the other brother. Daniel is the brother who did go along with it. He dimed out the guy at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
And so Daniel is scarred by that. He saw what that actually cost, what actually happened from that. Okay, let's put it this way. Daniel believes in something. Alex does not. And I'm coming around to your side right now.
Okay.
In that
I like the sound of that.
Alex maybe pivots his position on it because he doesn't really believe in anything. He threw down and left the family, but he didn't really, he came back.
Right.
So he's already pivoting on what he believes in. If he really believed that believed in the rumor that you would die if you elope, that there are no loopholes in here, and that there really was a chance that it would come down to this, he wouldn't have married. If he really loved her, he wouldn't have married her.
Right.
He would have put his foot down. Daniel actually, throughout the course of this movie, and you can see he's already scarred. He's probably an alcoholic. He's, disgusted with the family. He hates his wife.
He's repressing these feelings.
Right. But he's gone along with everything, and now it comes down to hide and seek, and he has to really make a decision of what he believes in. And he does waver through a lot of the movie. But ultimately, he comes to believe, like, yeah, we should let her go, and we all deserve to die.
Right.
To end this curse, to end everything.
It's really less of him not believing in the curse and more being like, even if this is the price we have to pay to survive, then we shouldn't do it.
Right. If this is who we are, that we have to murder people to stay alive, then we don't deserve to live. And, even his his sister's like, what about my kids? And, they show that, like, the kids actually are trying to murder her as well.
Right. Oh, when he shoots her in the hand, it is so funny.
It is funny, and it is, because it does feel like that is in there just so that you won't feel bad when the kids die at the end.
Right.
And the kids die off screen, of course. Like, I think everybody, even horror directors, are like, we can't kill a little kid on screen, like.
But we will deck him in the face.
That is very funny when she just leans into him and blackens his eye and knocks him out. But yeah, that's really, I think you're kind of bringing me around on that, because I'm like, I was writing Alex's wavering off on that same thing as the kids, like, oh, they have to make him bad before the end of the movie so that when he dies we won't feel bad.
Right.
But really it is about Daniel. Daniel is the good brother. Well, and Alex is, I think, throughout the movie. Yeah, you've convinced me. You've brought me to the other side.
The interesting thing about that is that Daniel is the one who saw his, like, uncle die.
Yeah.
And Alex didn't, because he was in the cupboard. And that is the key thing. It scarred him, but it's the key thing that made him realize that his family is bad.
Right. He saw it firsthand. He saw what hide and seek leads to is ritualistically killing a family member. Yeah, that's
no bueno. We do not stand for that here.
Wow, that's right. This podcast brought to you by Duolingo. Duolingo is
we're not sponsored, but
we're
we
not
should
sponsored,
be.
But Duolingo, reach out to us. We will drop some foreign words into.
I've got a 50-day streak going.
Hey, good on you.
Yeah,
I had that a couple years ago, and then I've just been hit and miss ever since. I'm terrible at it.
This is so off topic, but
let's go.
Duolingo is like, I feel like if
let's call it a foreign language education app instead of using its name. Until they pay us,
right.
We're not saying their name.
After we've said it 5 times.
I have the final edit on this.
This app works in junction with learning. Like, you can't just learn a language from the app. You have to have other resources. Right. It's a bonus.
Yeah, wow, we're down the rabbit hole on this foreign language app that shall not be named. Pay us.
This is what happens when a movie has...
When a movie is just... This movie is... Yeah, let's talk about that, because it sounds like we're coming down on it. I don't think it's a detriment that this movie is so on the surface.
Mm-hmm. You know, the term popcorn movie, I kind of don't like it, but I feel like it applies to this, where it's like something you will just put on, eat a snack, like hang out with your friends while watching it.
The term popcorn movie has been sort of co-opted by bad movies. Now, when a movie is bad, when it's poorly made, when there's no substance to it, when it's poorly written, poorly directed, these things...
We can say DC movies.
We can say a lot of movies. When you say that movie sucks, people go, it's a popcorn movie. Like, their defense is, it's not supposed to be good. Right. And I say, no, a popcorn movie is still good. It's supposed to be an enjoyable experience. Yes.
No movie is supposed to be
bad. Right. I will say, Zack Snyder movies are supposed to be good, but they're not. And for people to just say, well, it's not supposed to be good. Bullshit. Like, Man of Steel is supposed to be good. Sucker Punch. Zack Snyder didn't make these movies thinking, I'm going to make a bad movie. He tried to make them good, but they're not. Those movies suck. And for people, I'm tired of people apologizing for them. Like,
we're losing fans right now.
I don't care. If your defense for Sucker Punch is it's not supposed to be good, then why are we spending our time watching movies that aren't supposed to be good? This isn't The Room that was a bad movie, or Birdemic or Sharknado. These bad movies on purpose, where it's like manufactured camp. These
Right.
are movies that are supposed to be good with billion-dollar budgets, and people just go, "It's a popcorn movie," and that's the laziest excuse for a shit movie. Yes, this is a popcorn movie. Ready or Not is a popcorn movie. It's an enjoyable, surface-level horror comedy. Like,
I kind of think horror and comedy are the two most popcorn movie like genres.
sure. I think so. I think action movies in general are pretty popcorn movie. Like cop movies or action science fiction.
Like a buddy cop, like
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, I don't know that they make those anymore, but
they don't.
80s and 90s, the Lethal Weapons, the Die Hards, the, what's the Billy Crystal one? It,
I don't know.
predates all of them. Running Scared. These sort of buddy cop, they were just about, like, two street cops busting up a drug ring. Like,
Right.
There was no, like, deeper meaning. There was no metaphor for anything. There was no social commentary. You're just having a good time along for the ride. But yeah, that's what I feel like a popcorn movie is an enjoyable experience. And Ready or Not is that. It's not one of these garbage movies. So when I say it's on the surface, or when we call it a popcorn movie, I think we don't mean it as a detriment, but I feel like it keeps coming out that way.
Right. It's gotten to the point where the word changed meaning along the way, and it's now like, oh, a popcorn movie.
A popcorn movie. Stay away from that. But yeah, no, this is a surface level movie. The stakes are very real. There's a dark edge, and there's also a lot of fun to it.
Right. One thing, this is an interesting thing I noticed, is she keeps escaping, and then, like, the movie kept changing every time she escaped. Like, it was like, oh, she got out of the house. Okay, she's gonna run away. Oh, no, now she needs to cross the yard.
Right.
Okay, she needs to run away. Oh, now they're in the woods. Now they're in the car. Now they're back at the house. Now...
Yeah, there's like the movie doesn't change. She's always running away.
Right.
But it's almost it's almost like a video game of, like, getting to the next level. And she gets caught at, like, every level, but still somehow advances to the next level. You know what I mean? Like,
because makes it, of how bad they are.
She makes it to the barn,
right.
and gets shot in the hand, but manages to get out of that. How terrible is that? Climbing up.
Oh, God.
You know it's coming. Like, that's the thing that gets me, is it's coming, but still.
It's probably the darkest part of this movie, actually.
Yeah, probably.
It's the one that affected me the most. I, like, forgot it was a comedy.
It's the most body horror part of this movie, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this movie. I think maybe this was a bad movie was this a bad movie to pick? There wasn't enough to talk about.
I don't think so.
I feel like we're coming up short here. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy this movie. I think it is let's talk about it as a Halloween movie a little bit more. Like, I think this is an appropriate watch for this season because I have a good time with this movie.
Did this come out during Halloween?
I don't think so. I think it came out a little bit before.
Okay, because there's no, like, fall or winter imagery in it.
No, not really.
That's the one thing I'd maybe take a few points off calling it a Halloween movie. But I still feel like it has that Halloween aspect.
We should have watched Monster House. I knew it.
Monster House is great.
Great.
I'd say it's great. The
Putting
CGI isn't, but...
Well, it's that Robert Zemeckis mocap, but yeah.
Right.
No, Monster House is good. But as a Halloween movie, as far as just tone, I think this is something you kind of can't go wrong with.
Right.
So, that's it. That's my recommendation. I recommend this movie. There's not a lot to say about it. It's very surface level, like we said, but it's a really good time. And
right.
Full recommendation. Austin?
I would tell people to watch this movie. Get some popcorn, because it's a popcorn movie.
It is a popcorn movie,
right?
We've established.
Yeah, I don't know. I would rank this pretty high up in my, like, horror movie. Like, it's not bad, but it's not one of the ones that makes you think super hard about something. So it's like, Middle, maybe high.
It's a little too pedestrian for your intellectual leanings.
Well, actually, let me push up my glasses here.
Here, you want to borrow my glasses?
Sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't want to argue about the substance of this movie. Or does a horror movie have to have substance? I think we're finding out here that we're struggling to talk about this movie.
But not every movie is made to be talked about.
Sure. Yeah, there's not much meat on these bones. That's what I'm saying. I think maybe this was maybe we should have gone with The Shining. Heavy movies next year.
We can still do The Shining at any point.
I know. Yeah, and we will. Because love that movie. All right, this is our last Halloween movie. Any just random Halloween movie recommendations? I mean, you have Monster House. I would counter that with Paranorman.
I would counter that with Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, good one. American Werewolf in London. I just saw that on HBO. That almost I had in the running for this.
We might have to revisit that because I haven't seen it.
It's very good. It's very classic and has some really groundbreaking like special effects in it. Groundbreaking for the time, right? Which I think almost make it more disturbing. CGI is almost too smooth. When you can really show something and it looks grotesque, like that's pretty solid.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, those were others. I mean, those are things we could do next year, next Halloween,
right?
Or
I still want to do Coraline.
Coraline's another great one. David and I did that on Brokebot Mountain. Coraline is
it's a great book, too.
It is a great book. It is sort of a long-time favorite of mine since you guys were little and I took you to the theater to see it. Like, Coraline is really, I think, just a great sort of dark, all-ages movie.
Right. It's very scary for like I find it pretty scary.
It's yeah. There's a lot of disturbing imagery to it. The spider lady,
right?
The
gets my arachnophobia.
The idea of getting buttons sewn into your eyes is pretty terrifying, really.
I don't know. I like it.
Yeah.
Fashion statements. You know.
Sure.
Should be used to other people's culture. But in I
think we covered that last.
Don't offend the other mother.
What do they call it? Is it the Upside Down? Do they call the other world something? It's not the Upside Down. That's Stranger Things.
Well, they call it the other.
The other world.
Other world.
Something like that. I don't remember. We're overdue. We should have watched it.
See, we keep talking about other movies.
I know. Well, I specifically brought it up because it's like, like other movies to watch this Halloween. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go ahead and mention my shout out right now. Also, Don't Run, which is available on Amazon for rent or purchase. Don't Run is a micro budget. This was done on a shoestring. It is a movie that is written and directed by my cousin, Ben Rood. And he released it there. Ben has a new movie he just wrapped shooting on called Movers Ultimate, a comedy, which I think he has it scheduled to come out next year. But available right now is Don't Run. And it is about a high school kid who is basically being held captive in his home by a monster who lives in his closet. It is a classic monster in the closet story of this kid who has to be in his bed by sundown every night. It is interesting. It is a very interesting movie. Ben did a lot with a little bit of money, and it's really, if you appreciate independent filmmaking, it's really a cool piece of that. Independent filmmaking where the ideas are bigger than the budgets, but the ideas come through. And that's what it's all about, is getting that out there. And Ben did a great job with that. Of course, yes, I am biased. But Ben did a really great job of doing that and getting that movie made and getting it out to people. And I think it's a really fun Halloween watch.
I think that's a cool concept.
Yeah, it's really cool. So check that out. I will have the Amazon link in our show notes. Austin, what do you got this week?
While we're doing shout-outs, you should listen to the Penumbra podcast. Penumbra. I don't actually know what the Penumbra is. But the show itself is kind of like the Twilight Zone. It's got individual standalone horror, but also it plays around with a lot, and it's got 2 reoccurring stories. One about a detective on Mars, and another about knights in a medieval fantasy realm. So it always comes back to those 2, but then in between they have a bunch of independent horror related.
Sort of anthology style.
Yeah, okay. I think it's really cool.
Cool. I will check that out. I love anthology weirdness.
It's very weird.
It's good stuff.
And very gay.
Really?
Yeah, they've got a lot of queer characters.
Oh, well, forget it. I won't listen now. I'm
we
joking.
don't want you.
No, that's cool. So it's audio, like an audio drama. So it's audio fiction.
Yeah. It's fictional
anthology
stories.
style. That sounds really, really cool. Really up my alley.
It is cool.
On that note, we're going to get out of here, and thank you for listening to this episode of The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It really helps our visibility, and it helps us grow the show. And also, please reach out to us if there are hidden levels to this movie that we missed.
Watch there be a really obvious meaning.
Something that is really... someone puts a Room 237 style documentary about how this is about the fake moon landing or something like that. But yeah, reach out to us. Let us know.
Yeah. Another way you can help us grow is to tell a friend about us. That just helps out podcasts.
Yeah, word of mouth is huge.
Right.
Just like you just told me about the Penumbra Podcast. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and now you do.
And so do all our listeners.
Speaking of word of mouth, Duolingo are soon to be sponsored.
I'm editing that out until they pay us.
Okay.
Next week, we are breaking free of Halloween month and getting back to Legend of Korra season 2.
The Avatar universe.
That's
we
right.
are returning
with our joint pick of the Avatar universe. Legend of Korra Season 2. Our review of that will be coming up. So tune into that next week. And get caught up on Netflix if you're not by now. If you're like me, if you're like me and very late to the Korra party, but you want to follow along with us, that's what we'll be discussing.
Totally unbiased here, but I recommend it.
I don't not recommend it. You know my feelings on Korra.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue.
I have a very complicated relationship with the Legend of Korra. But we'll get into that and more next week. Austin, what's your social media handles you want to shout out?
I am austin.n.rood on TikTok and Instagram. And then Austin N. Rood for Twitter.
All right. I am philrood.com. Also Phil Rood on YouTube, where you can see the drawings that I make for this show for each episode. And also our audio. That is done with the audio, this audio right now, that we're making right now.
That you're listening to.
It will be part of a video. But yeah, check that out. I really enjoy doing those drawings and sharing them there. And it's another way that you can consume the show. Austin, you want to read the credits?
Yep. We do everything ourselves.
There you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya.
I think you've got that spot. For God's sake. They are like right there. There's an entire yard to weed eat. Okay.
They're just doing their job. Just like us.
God damn it.